Jack Thompson, a 28-year-old plumber, lived a modest life in a small, quiet town. Every day was the same, fixing leaky pipes, replacing faucets, and struggling to make ends meet. Despite his hard work, he often found himself daydreaming about a better life, a life far away from the financial struggles that seemed to define him. One rainy afternoon, Jack received a call from a number he didn't recognize. The voice on the other end was calm yet commanding. "This is Evelyn Harper," the woman said. "I own the large estate at Willowbrook Lane. There's an urgent plumbing issue. Can you come immediately?" Evelyn Harper. The name struck Jack. She was a local legend, a wealthy widow known for her extravagant lifestyle and mysterious aura. Rumors about her fortune and reclusive nature swirled around the town, but no one really knew much about her. Intrigued and eager for a high-paying job, Jack quickly packed his tools and headed to the mansion. The Harper estate was unlike anything Jack had ever seen. The grand gates opened to reveal a sprawling garden, dotted with marble statues and fountains. The mansion itself was a masterpiece of old-world architecture, with ivy crawling up its stone walls. Inside, Evelyn greeted Jack. She was graceful, her silver hair pinned elegantly, and her sharp eyes sparkled with an intelligence that made Jack feel both nervous and curious. "Thank you for coming on such short notice," she said, her voice warm but authoritative. "The issue is in the master bathroom upstairs." As Jack worked, Evelyn sat nearby, sipping tea and watching him with an amused smile. "You're very good at this," she remarked. "It's rare to find someone so dedicated these days." "Thank you, ma'am," Jack replied, focusing on his work but feeling her gaze linger on him. When the job was done, Evelyn insisted he stay for tea as a gesture of gratitude. Jack hesitated but eventually agreed. During their conversation, Evelyn's charm surprised him. She was witty, full of stories about her travels and adventures. Despite their age difference, Jack felt an unexpected connection. "You're an interesting young man," Evelyn said, her eyes narrowing slightly. "It's rare to meet someone with your drive." As Jack prepared to leave, Evelyn smiled and handed him a check. The amount was more than generous. "I hope we'll see each other again," she said, almost as if it were a promise. But as Jack walked out of the mansion, he couldn't shake the feeling that this encounter was the beginning of something much larger, and far more complicated, than he'd ever imagined. The days after Jack's visit to Evelyn Harper's mansion were anything but ordinary. He couldn't stop thinking about her elegance, her stories, and that strange feeling of familiarity she stirred in him. For someone who had spent his life struggling, the experience felt like stepping into another world. A week later, Jack received a handwritten letter delivered to his small apartment. It was from Evelyn. The words were as graceful as she was. "Dear Jack, I enjoyed our conversation immensely and find myself wishing for more. Would you do me the honor of joining me for dinner at my estate this Saturday? I promise it will be worth your while. Warm regards, Evelyn Harper." Curiosity and a flicker of excitement filled Jack as he read the letter. This wasn't just a job now, it felt like an invitation into a life he could barely imagine. When Saturday arrived, Jack dressed in his best, though his wardrobe left much to be desired. As he arrived at the Harper estate, the grand doors opened to reveal Evelyn, dressed in a flowing gown that made her look regal. The dining room was lavishly decorated with crystal chandeliers and a table laden with dishes Jack couldn't even name. Dinner was an experience unlike any he had ever had. Evelyn spoke of her younger days, her late husband's business empire, and her travels around the world. Jack listened, captivated, but he couldn't ignore the subtle glances she gave him, as if she were sizing him up. "Jack," she said, her tone shifting to something serious, "do you believe in fate?" Jack hesitated. "I guess so. Why do you ask?" Evelyn leaned forward, her eyes gleaming. "Because I believe you came into my life for a reason. You're different, Jack. Ambitious but humble. You remind me of someone I once knew. Before Jack could respond, she dropped the bombshell. I've been thinking a lot since we met. I'm lonely, Jack. My wealth, my status, it's meaningless without someone to share it with. I need a companion. Someone I can trust. Jack blinked, unsure if he was hearing her correctly. Are you saying what I think you're saying? Yes, Evelyn said calmly. I want you to marry me. The room fell silent. Jack's mind raced. Marriage? To Evelyn? The idea was absurd, and yet, the thought of her wealth flashed in his mind. He could finally escape his struggles. But, why me? He stammered. Evelyn smiled, but her eyes carried a hint of sadness. Because I see potential in you. And because I have no one else. As if sensing his hesitation, she added, of course, you'll be well taken care of. You'll never have to worry about money again. But there is one condition. What condition? Jack asked, his voice barely a whisper. Evelyn's smile faded. You'll need to sign a prenuptial agreement. It's just a formality, really, but it's important to me. Jack nodded slowly, the gears in his mind turning. He agreed to think about it and left the mansion, his thoughts a whirlwind of emotions. Later that night, Jack confided in his best friend, Adam. She wants me to marry her, Jack said, pacing the room. Adam stared at him, stunned. Are you serious? Jack, this is crazy. She's 75. I know, Jack replied, running a hand through his hair. But Adam, you don't understand. This could change my life. Adam shook his head. Jack, money isn't everything. What if there's more to her than she's letting on? Jack brushed off the warning, but his friend's words lingered in his mind. The next day, Jack called Evelyn to accept her proposal. Her voice lit up with joy, and she insisted they move forward quickly. But as he hung up the phone, Jack couldn't shake the nagging feeling that he was stepping into something far more complicated than he realized. That evening, as Jack prepared to sleep, he received a notification on his phone, a voicemail from an unknown number. The voice was deep and cold. Be careful, Jack. You have no idea what you've gotten yourself into. The night after Jack received the ominous voicemail, sleep was impossible. The words echoed in his head, be careful, Jack. You have no idea what you've gotten yourself into. Who could it have been? A prank call? A jealous relative of Evelyn? Or someone with knowledge he didn't have? Morning came, and Jack decided to shrug it off. He had made his choice, and the promise of financial security was too tempting to back away now. Evelyn wasted no time. She had already arranged for a small, intimate ceremony to be held within a week. In the days leading up to the wedding, Jack found himself spending more time at the Harper estate. Evelyn insisted he familiarize himself with her life, the mansion, her social circle, and even her late husband's study, which had been locked for years. Why keep it locked? Jack asked one afternoon as Evelyn handed him the key. She hesitated for a moment before answering. It's sentimental. But you're going to be part of this home now. You deserve to see it. Jack entered the study, and his breath caught. The room was immaculate, as if frozen in time. The walls were lined with bookshelves, but what caught Jack's eye was a large, framed photograph of Evelyn with a man who appeared to be her late husband. The man looked familiar. Shaking off the thought, Jack continued to explore. He opened the desk drawers and found files, papers, and business documents. But one file, tucked in the back, caught his attention. It was labeled simply, confidential. Curiosity got the better of him. Jack opened the file and began reading. What he found made his stomach drop. The documents detailed financial transactions, investments, and partnerships, all tied to Evelyn's late husband. But buried within the pages were unsettling references to offshore accounts and unresolved investigations. Worse, there were mentions of Evelyn's name linked to the disappearance of a former business associate. Jack's hands trembled as he read. Was Evelyn involved in something illegal? Why hadn't this ever come to light? Just as he was about to close the file, he heard Evelyn's voice behind him. Find anything interesting? Jack jumped, slamming the drawer shut. No. Just papers, he stammered, trying to keep his voice steady. Evelyn's expression was calm, but her eyes were unreadable. Good. I wouldn't want you digging up things that don't concern you, she said, her tone light but with an underlying edge. That night, Jack couldn't stop thinking about the file. He decided to share his discovery with Adam. Meeting his friend at a diner, he laid out everything he'd found. Adam's face darkened. Jack, this isn't normal. You need to be careful. This woman might be hiding more than you realize. Jack sighed. I know, but what can I do? I've already said yes. I'm in too deep. Adam leaned in, lowering his voice. Then find out what's really going on. If you're going to marry her, you need to know everything. The day before the wedding, Jack received another voicemail. This time, the voice was urgent but cryptic. You need to leave. Evelyn isn't who she says she is. Check the basement. The basement? Jack had never been down there. It was off limits, Evelyn had told him. But now, with the warning fresh in his mind, he couldn't resist. That evening, after Evelyn went to bed, Jack crept downstairs. The mansion was eerily silent as he made his way to the basement door. He found it unlocked, a small detail that sent a chill down his spine. The basement was cold and dimly lit. As Jack descended the stairs, the air grew heavier, and an overwhelming sense of dread filled him. At first, he saw nothing unusual, just old furniture and storage boxes. But then, tucked behind a curtain, he found a locked metal cabinet. Using a screwdriver from his toolbox, Jack pried it open. Inside were folders, photographs, and what appeared to be a journal. The photographs froze Jack in place. They were of Evelyn with various men, each younger than her, and each wearing a wedding band. But the dates on the back of the photos told a chilling story. These weren't happy memories, these were a timeline. And all the men were missing. Just as Jack began flipping through the journal, he heard footsteps overhead. Someone was awake. The door to the basement creaked open, and Evelyn's voice called down, Jack? Is everything all right? Jack's heart pounded as Evelyn's voice echoed down the basement stairs. He hastily stuffed the photographs and journal back into the cabinet, pulling the curtain over it just as her figure appeared at the top of the stairs. Jack, she called again, her tone soft but with an edge of suspicion. He steadied his breath and forced a calm reply. Just looking around. I couldn't sleep. Evelyn's silhouette paused for a moment before she descended the stairs, her presence commanding even in her night robe. She smiled, but there was something unsettling about it. This old place has a way of drawing people in. But the basement, Jack, is no place to wander. It's full of dust and memories better left alone. Jack nodded, avoiding her gaze. I was just curious. I'll head back up now. Evelyn reached out and gently touched his arm. You've had a long day. Why don't you get some rest? Tomorrow's a big day. Her words were soothing, but Jack couldn't shake the feeling that she was testing him. As soon as she left, Jack returned to his room, clutching the notebook he'd slipped under his shirt. He waited until the house was silent again before opening it. The journal was Evelyn's, and its contents were darker than he could have imagined. The entries spanned decades, detailing her relationships with multiple young men, each starting with charm and wealth, and ending in ambiguity. Words like disposal, secrecy, and loose ends jumped off the pages. One entry chilled Jack to the bone. They never see it coming. They think it's love, but it's just a transaction. Always remember to tie up the loose ends. The next morning, Jack played along, pretending everything was fine. Evelyn was radiant as she discussed last-minute wedding details. Her joy seemed genuine, but Jack knew better now. During a quiet moment, he slipped out of the mansion and made a call to Adam, recounting everything he'd found. "Jack, you need to leave." "Right now," Adam urged. "I can't," Jack replied, glancing nervously around. "If I run, she'll know. I need proof, something solid to show the authorities." Adam groaned. "You're playing with fire. She's dangerous, Jack. Please, don't underestimate her." That evening, Jack decided to confront Evelyn subtly. Over dinner, he casually brought up the topic of her past relationships. "You've lived such a fascinating life," Jack said, trying to keep his tone light. "Did you ever think about remarrying before this?" Evelyn smiled but didn't miss a beat. "Oh, Jack, my past is just that, past. None of them mattered the way you do." Her words sent a shiver down his spine. He could feel her eyes on him, as if daring him to challenge her. Later that night, Jack returned to the basement. He needed more evidence, something undeniable. This time, he dug deeper into the locked cabinet. Among the files, he found old newspaper clippings detailing the mysterious disappearances of Evelyn's previous partners. Each story was eerily similar, a whirlwind romance, a lavish wedding, and then, nothing. Suddenly, Jack's phone buzzed. It was another voicemail from the same unknown number. "You've found the truth. But you don't have much time. Get out before it's too late." His blood ran cold. As he turned to leave, the basement door slammed shut. The lights flickered, and footsteps echoed above. Jack was trapped. Then, Evelyn's voice drifted down, calm but icy. "Jack, I thought I told you to stay out of the basement." Jack froze, his breath catching in his throat. Evelyn's voice was deceptively calm, but her tone carried an unmistakable menace. "What are you doing down there, Jack?" she called again, this time closer, her heels clicking on the floor above. He quickly shoved the files and photographs back into the cabinet, closing it as quietly as he could. His mind raced for an excuse, but nothing seemed convincing. The basement felt like a trap, cold, dark, and suffocating. Evelyn appeared at the top of the stairs, her silhouette backlit by the dim hallway light. She held a glass of red wine, her poise unshaken. "You've been restless lately," she said, descending the steps slowly. "Is something bothering you?" Jack swallowed hard, his pulse pounding. "No, I just couldn't sleep. Thought I'd explore the house a bit." She reached the bottom step, her gaze piercing. "Exploring? Or snooping?" Jack tried to steady his voice. "I wasn't snooping. Just curious about the history of the house." Evelyn's smile was thin, almost predatory. "Curiosity can be dangerous, Jack. You might find things you're better off not knowing." She stepped closer, her eyes flicking briefly toward the cabinet. "But since you're so curious, why don't we talk?" Jack felt cornered. He needed to act, but Evelyn was in control. "Sure," he said, forcing a smile. "Let's talk." They returned to the living room, where Evelyn poured herself another glass of wine and offered Jack one. He declined, his stomach too tied in knots to drink. Evelyn took a seat and gestured for him to do the same. "You've been digging, haven't you?" she asked bluntly. Jack hesitated, then decided to confront her. I found the files in the basement, Evelyn. The photographs, the journal. What happened to the men before me? For the first time, Evelyn's mask of composure slipped. Her smile faltered, and her eyes darkened. You've been very busy, Jack, she said softly, setting her glass down. Too busy. Jack leaned forward, his voice firm. Tell me the truth, Evelyn. What's going on here? Who are you, really? Evelyn sighed, leaning back in her chair. You want the truth? Fine. Every one of those men was a liar, a thief, or worse. They came into my life for money, just like you did. Jack's stomach churned. So you, what? Got rid of them? Evelyn's expression turned icy. I protected myself. No one will take advantage of me. Not ever again. Jack stood, his chair scraping against the floor. You can't justify this, Evelyn. You're dangerous. She laughed, a cold, hollow sound. And you're naive. Do you think you're the first one to try and expose me? You don't know what you're up against. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door. Jack and Evelyn both turned toward the sound. Are you expecting someone? Jack asked, his voice tense. Evelyn's face darkened. No. Jack seized the moment and bolted for the door. Opening it, he was shocked to find Adam standing there, his expression grim. Adam? Jack said, stunned. I told you to leave, Adam said, stepping inside. I've been digging too, Jack. And Evelyn, she's worse than we thought. Evelyn's calm demeanor cracked. You shouldn't have come here, she said, her voice slow and venomous. Jack and Adam exchanged a glance. We're calling the police, Adam said firmly. Evelyn's laugh sent chills down their spines. Go ahead. Do you think they'll believe you over me? A respectable, wealthy widow against a desperate young man and his friend? Good luck. Jack wasn't about to back down. We have the files. The photographs. The journal. Evelyn's smirk faded. For the first time, she seemed genuinely rattled. You don't know what you've done, she hissed. Suddenly, Evelyn lunged for a letter opener on the table. Jack and Adam barely managed to restrain her as she screamed, her composed facade completely shattered. As sirens wailed in the distance, Evelyn turned to Jack with a chilling smile. You think this is over? You have no idea what's coming. The police arrived moments later, finding Evelyn restrained and snarling like a caged animal. Her once flawless composure had completely unraveled. Jack and Adam handed over the journal and the files, detailing Evelyn's dark history. The officers exchanged grim glances as they led her away in handcuffs. Before stepping into the patrol car, Evelyn turned to Jack one last time. Her voice was low but venomous. You think you're free now? You'll never escape me, Jack. Not truly. Her words echoed in his mind long after she was driven away into the night. In the days that followed, the story of Evelyn Harper, the wealthy widow with a sinister past, became national news. Reporters swarmed the mansion, eager to unravel the mystery of the men who had disappeared over the years. Jack, however, wanted no part in the media circus. With Adam's help, he packed his belongings and left the mansion for good. The weight of Evelyn's words still lingered, but he knew he had done the right thing. Months passed, and Jack began rebuilding his life. He returned to plumbing, though the notoriety from the case followed him wherever he went. Strangers would recognize him on the street, some offering sympathy, others judgment. One day, as he was finishing a job, an envelope arrived at his small apartment. There was no return address. Jack's hands trembled as he opened it. Inside was a single photograph of him and Evelyn on their wedding day, with a note written in her familiar, elegant handwriting. "You think it's over, Jack. But it's only the beginning." Despite the chills the message sent through him, Jack refused to let fear control him. He contacted the authorities, who reassured him that Evelyn was locked away in a high-security prison. But Jack couldn't shake the feeling that her reach extended far beyond those walls. In the end, Jack learned a valuable lesson about greed, trust, and the hidden costs of taking shortcuts in life. Evelyn had used her wealth to manipulate and destroy, but she hadn't broken him. As Jack looked out at the city skyline one evening, he made a vow to live an honest life, no matter how hard it might be. He realized now that true freedom came not from wealth, but from peace of mind, and that was something Evelyn could never take from him. The scars she left behind were deep, but they were also a reminder that he had survived. And for Jack, survival was the first step toward reclaiming his life. Thank you for staying with us through this incredible story. What would you have done in Jack's situation? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more captivating stories like this one. See you next time.